Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at a budget deck, and this is going to be a blue budget deck as of Special Booster 1.5 because Special Booster 1.5 added a lot of new and interesting tools for us to be working around with, especially on a budget, and I am solely focusing on upgrading the blue starter deck just because there's a lot of really good cards that synergize very nicely with the blue starter deck. So one of the big themes that the blue starter deck was focused around was this theme of unsuspending your Digimon, so we could utilize some of the new cards that Special Booster 1.5 has to really enhance that sub-theme and really make it shine with some upgrades to the blue starter deck. So going over the deck, starting with the Digitama, I'm going to be running one copy of Wanyamon. So Wanyamon is just the 5th Digitama of the deck. This could really be any Digitama you feel like you want, but I just feel like Wanyamon is pretty nice because it has this inheritable ability where during your turn, while your opponent has 2 or more Digimon with no Digivolution sources in play, then this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP. So because we are going to be centered around multi-attacking and our DP isn't necessarily the highest, Wanyamon giving us the biggest boost is definitely really nice to have. And then the main Digitama of the deck is going to be 4 copies of DemiVeemon. So this version of DemiVeemon is the BT-02 version of DemiVeemon, and he has some great synergy with a lot of our high-end Digimon in the deck because he has this great inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for the turn. So this is just another DP booster, and because a lot of our Digimon on our higher end are going to be unsuspending themselves in some way, shape, or form, it's definitely really easy to get this buff off, and because a lot of our Digimon aren't necessarily the strongest, having this buff is definitely really helpful, so that way we could continue to apply lots of pressure onto the opponent. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Elecmon. So Elecmon is a pretty decent card just because he's a value-efficient vanilla rookie, where we're really just looking to utilize the card for his low play cost and his low evo cost, and he also has some decent DP, so all of those 3 elements just make the card a very efficient card to run. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Veemon. So this Veemon is the BT-02 Veemon, and this Veemon works really nicely with the deck for almost the exact same reasons as the DemiVeemon Digitama, where he has this great inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, then you get to draw 1 card. So this is the primary draw engine of the deck, and he is really good for being our draw engine. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Goldramon. So this Goldramon is basically the exact same thing as Elecmon, where he shares the exact same stat line. So we're running him for the exact same reasons as we're running Elecmon. And the only reason why I'm running 4 of this Goldramon and only 2 Elecmon is because this Goldramon comes in the starter deck, so it requires no extra investment, where you do have to go out of your way to get 2 copies of Elecmon. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Gabumon. So this Gabumon is the starter deck Gabumon, and this Gabumon is really nice because he has this great inheritable ability where when attacking, you get to trash the Digivolution source off of the bottom of one of the opponent's Digimon that's level 5 or less. So because we are going to be unsuspending our Digimon, so that way we could utilize unsuspend synergies, we also can start thinking about utilizing some on-attack synergies because we're going to be able to attack multiple times, and removing multiple evolution sources off of the opponent's Digimon can be a real hindrance on the opponent because we could use this type of ability to take away some of their abilities and make their Digimon a little bit weaker than they normally would be. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Goldramon. So Goldramon is just a very fantastic Digimon because this is a very tempo-efficient Digimon, just because he has a really low evo cost of 1 compared to a lot of other Digimon in his level. So it's really good to just get into our higher stages that much faster with, on top of which, if we do feel like we need to aggress with the card, he also has some really high DP compared to a lot of the other Digimon in his level, just making him an overall very good tempo card to Digivolve with and to Digivolve off of. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Garurumon. So this is the starter deck Garurumon, and the starter deck only comes with 2 copies, so you will have to get 2 additional copies somewhere else. But regardless, this Garurumon is still a very fantastic card, just because it's doing the exact same thing as the Gabumon, except its when attacking ability doesn't have a restriction on the level of Digimon that you could attack the evolution sources off of. But the fact that we could stack these up and remove a whole bunch of evolution sources off of the opponent's Digimon makes it really, really good, and we could start thinking about utilizing some synergies with removing the opponent's Digivolution sources if we so choose. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Grizzlymon. So Grizzlymon is in here just because this is the blocker of the deck, and we still need to have some form of defense, so Grizzlymon just fits that bill. Next, onto the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Aeroveedramon. So Aeroveedramon is one of the primary cards from Special Booster 1.5 that really interacts and synergizes well with the metalgarurumon from the starter deck, just because he has this really powerful inheritable ability where during your turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, then it gets jamming. So this is really, really good because it's what allows your metalgarurumon from the starter deck to just start safely aggressing onto the opponent, because when he attacks, he'll just naturally unsuspend himself, and because he unsuspended himself, he'll gain the jamming ability, so he's basically attacking with jamming, and that's just really, really good. And then on top of that, he has a really powerful ability of his own, where he has a when digivolving ability, where if you have a blue tamer in play, then you get to unsuspend one of your blue Digimon. So this allows you to start aggressing relatively early if you so choose, or you could use this ability a little bit more defensively. It all depends on what the current state of the game is looking like and how you feel like you want to play the card. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Weregarurumon. So this version of Weregarurumon is from the starter deck, and he's still a very good card to run just because he has this nice inheritable ability of during your turn, while your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution sources in play, then this Digimon gains Security Tac +1. So the Security Tac +1 just allows us to pressure the opponent's security and try to close out games that much more faster and that much more efficiently. And then on top of which, we do have multi-attacking to basically swing for 4 security in 1 turn. And that's just really, really powerful to think about because we are also playing the Garurumon and Gabumon. So those abilities definitely work really, really nicely in tandem with Weregarurumon to make sure that you could get this ability off. Next, onto the Megas, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Goldramon. So Goldramon is a pretty interesting Digimon that has some synergy with the deck, just because he has this really nice ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you play another Digimon, then you get to unsuspend this Digimon. So even though he is a little bit harder to work with in the deck, the fact that he still can trigger a lot of our unsuspend and on-attack synergies definitely makes him a really interesting card to be running and definitely one to highlight. And he does have his own really good support within the deck, just because we are going to be playing these value-efficient rookie cards where we can utilize their low play cost to make sure that we could get Goldramon to have his extra attacks with. Or if we just happen to have a whole bunch of extra memory, then we could still utilize Goldramon's ability to just be able to unsuspend himself. But even if we can't get the extra attack off of him unsuspending himself, he still triggers our unsuspend synergy, so he still can get the draw off of Veemon, and unsuspending himself after he attacked definitely means that he kind of has his own little built-in protection, so that way the opponent can't attack into the card. So even though he's exactly not the best Mega for the deck, the fact that he still has some pretty high synergy with the deck means that he's still worth running. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Plesiomon. So Plesiomon is a really fantastic Digimon just because this is a value-efficient Mega Digimon, where we're really just utilizing the card for his very low Evo cost, so it's very efficient to just get up into him and then Digivolve into him. And then on top of the fact that he has low Evo cost, he also has some really decent DP, so that way we could try to utilize him as a more aggressive tool. Even though he can't unsuspend himself naturally, it's still just the fact that he's a very powerful Mega that we could be running is definitely why we still want to be running him. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be 4 copies of metalgarurumon. So this metalgarurumon is from the starter deck. Just as a note, the starter deck only comes with 2, so you will have to pick up 2 copies somewhere else. But I built and based this whole deck around this metalgarurumon just because he has this really powerful ability of when attacking once per turn, you get to unsuspend this Digimon. So basically, him getting a free unsuspend every single turn is really, really powerful because the deck is solely built to support this card. So if we have the Garurumon line stacked underneath him, then we could easily give him security attack +1. And then with the DemiVeemon, he could get some extra DP when he unsuspends himself. So he could be hitting for 12 with security attack +1 while getting rid of 2 of the opponent's evolution sources off of 1 swing, and then he still has another swing incoming, and then on top of which you have like Aeroveedramon and Veemon, where Veemon will give us an extra draw and Aeroveedramon will give him jamming. So he just has a lot of synergy with a lot of the cards that we're playing with, and is the whole focus of the deck just because we're trying to maximize and capitalize on his innate ability to unsuspend himself. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Hammerspark. So Hammerspark is an absolutely insane and fantastic card just because for the low play cost of 0, we get to gain 1 memory. So gaining that 1 memory does allow us to extend a lot of our plays and make some of our plays more possible. And that's just already really good, but on top of that, it also has a nice security effect of gaining 2 memory, which is effectively taking away 2 memory from the opponent, and that can be really brutal on disrupting the opponent. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Cocytus Breath. So we do still want a way to interact with the opponent's Digimon in some form. So Cocytus Breath just allowing us to bounce one of the opponent's Digimon back to their hand is really, really big because we need to clear certain threats off just because we might not be able to deal with it otherwise. So bouncing is Blue's form of removal, so we're just using it to just get the body off the board. Yes, they could still potentially replay it or build back up into it, but they're going to have to spend that time and those resources to replay the card, and if they can't replay it efficiently enough, then this card just is really, really worthwhile for that huge anti-tempo swing. And then on top of which it has a really nice security ability of activating its main effect, so it's a really good card to also have in your security because it'll allow you to play it for free when checked. And then lastly, I'm only going to be running 2 Tamers in the deck, and that's going to be Matt Ishida from BT-01. So this Matt is really in here just as the memory fixing tamer, and that's the primary purpose of this card, is just to always have our memory be set to 3 in case our memory is going to be set to less than 3. So this just makes a lot of our megas that much efficient to play and a lot of our other cards that much more efficient to play. So we'll always make sure that we have memory to, play our cards. And then Hammerspark, with this card being set to 3, allows us to play and swing with metalgarurumon, so that's just some good synergy there. And then he has this other ability where during your turn, when you play a blue Digimon, you could suspend this tamer to trash the bottom Digivolution source off of one of the opponent's Digimon. So we do have a little bit of synergy where we do want to play some of our Digimon because we are running Goldramon in the deck. So Matt Ishida is just going to be complementing Goldramon's ability to unsuspend himself, and then with Matt on the field, we could suspend him to trash one of the opponent's evolution sources. So he still has some synergy with the deck in that regard, even though we don't really have any payout to disrupting the opponent by taking away their evolution sources. It's still just a nice addition to have nonetheless. And then there's so many cards that you could think about to customize the deck to make it your own, depending on what your budget is and what you want to be focusing on. So here are some budget-friendly options that you could think about upgrading the deck with, depending on how you want to play it. So you could think about running a little bit more jamming to support this version of DemiVeemon, where he is basically a draw engine as long as your Digimon has jamming. And then if you want to also focus a little bit on some more on-play abilities and try to focus on on-play synergies, then you could run this Garurumon because this Garurumon's on-play ability allows you to unsuspend one of your Digimon, thus making a lot of your abilities active. Then if you want to run a jammer in the champion slot, you have both Frigimon and Veedramon, depending on what you want to utilize. Then we also have the Promo Garurumon, which has a really great on-attacking ability to just act as another really good draw engine, and this isn't once per turn, so the more we could unsuspend and attack with, the more we could draw with this card. Then we also have Bastimon and Monzimon as some great tempo ultimates where you're really just utilizing them for their low evo cost, and that's just pretty good. Then you also have Garurumon you could think about, where this is a good complement to the promo Garurumon, where we could be drawing a lot off of him, and then we could utilize his inheritable ability as long as we have 8 or more cards in our hand to get security attack +1. So that's just already pretty good, on top of which he has his own really interesting ability, where he has a when attacking ability to unsuspend himself, as long as he has a Garurumon in his evolution source. So we could pair this up with the Veemon that allows us to draw a card when we unsuspend to start aggroing really, really early. The only unfortunate thing about this card is the fact that he has 6,000, but paired up with the DemiVeemon that we're currently running in the deck, he could be boosted up to 7 or 8, depending on the types of support that we have underneath him. Then one of the cheapest blue megas that we could play is Leopardmon. So if we are going for a little bit more jamming focus and Goldramon focus, then Leopardmon is still a really fantastic Digimon to be playing around with, just because he has a nice when Digivolving ability where we could separate a level 4 Digivolution source from one of our Digimon as another Digimon. So that'll trigger any of their on-play abilities and create an extra body. So that's already pretty good. And then on top of that, he will give all of our level 4 or lower Digimon jamming. So that just makes running cards like DemiVeemon that much more worth it. Then we also have access to the Ray of Victory, so this is another really good bounce option that we have, where we could bounce one of the opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon back to their hand, and then if we have a blue tamer, then we get to unsuspend one of our Digimon, thus triggering a lot of our unsuspend synergy, and then we also could activate this card from our security if it's checked in our security, because of its security ability of activating its main effect. Then again, if you want to play with some more on-play synergy, the starter deck naturally comes with Kaiser Nails, so you could be playing around with Goldramon and Kaiser Nail, or Leopardmon, Goldramon, and Kaiser Nail, just because you could utilize this card to start separating your Digivolution sources as Digimon, and then that triggers Goldramon's ability to become active, so you could swing with Goldramon again, while spawning another body, while getting another on-play ability, so there's just a whole bunch of synergy to be had there, and then it has a really nice security ability of activating its main effect. And then the starter deck also comes with a Tamer, which is the 2-cost mat, which is really, really good because we could utilize this in combination with the other mat, in combination with the cards that are attacking the opponent's evolution sources, to have some sort of payout, and that payout would be to gain a memory as long as the opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution sources in play. So if we pair this up with the memory fixing mat, we could potentially get 4 memory at the start of our turn, and that's just pretty good. And then we also have a whole bunch of not budget-friendly options. If you really want to like go and explore this type of style of deck, then you could think about, again, utilizing some of the synergies I laid out before, where you could utilize more on-play synergies. So this Gobumon's really great because he allows us to draw a card on play. Then we also have more jamming synergy, where you could start thinking about aggroing really early on with this version of Veemon because he has jamming. Then if you really want to double down and do some really interesting things with multi-attacking, this Aeroveedramon is really, really good because he has a nice when attacking ability. Once per turn, if we have a Tamer in play, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon. So if you really want to double down on the Veedramon support, then this Veedramon being able to multi-attack really early is definitely really, really nice. On top of his good inheritable ability, where as long as we have a blue Tamer in play during all turns, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So he definitely has one of the better DP boosts for blue. So this card is definitely really interesting to be playing around with. And then if you just want more multi-attacking, then you could think about running this version of Veemon, because he pairs up really nicely with basically any of our lower levels, especially if they have jamming. So that way we could like swing, Digivolve, swing again, and then if they have jamming, then we're safe to just keep swinging. You could also think about running Veedramon 0 if you really want to go more into the Veedramon line and really focus on some of the Veedramon synergies. So this card has a really powerful when attacking ability, where if we have a blue Tamer, then we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck to give this Digimon plus 2000 DP for the turn. So you could swing with Veedramon 0, utilize his ability, to give him a buff, and then you could Digivolve him into, let's just say, Aeroveedramon, stand him back up, and then swing again with Aeroveedramon, so that's some really interesting synergy there. And then on top of which, he has another draw engine on his when attacking ability that's not locked to once per turn, so you could utilize his ability to draw multiple cards in a single turn. And then if you want to continue to focus on play synergy, then you have Zudomon, which is just an on-play draw 2. So this works really well with Kaiser Nails to just separate them to just draw 2 cards. And then on top of which, he has a really nice heritable ability of on attacking that's not once per turn. So you could trigger this multiple times to just be able to gain 1 memory as long as your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution sources. So it's just another payout card to the opponent not having any Digimon with Digivolution sources in it. Then you could also think about running BT-01's metalgarurumon, just because this is playing around more with Goldramon and the fact that you could utilize metalgarurumon to start separating his evolution sources so that Goldramon can swing multiple times in a single turn, and that's just some really interesting synergy, on top of which he plays very well with a lot of the on-play synergies that Blue's already playing around with, similar to what Leopardmon can be doing. And then because we're blue, you could think about running Omnimon. So Omnimon is just a really good removal card that also has multi-attacking, so he just works really well with the deck. And then as far as some alternate tamers go, you could run Davis just to help make sure that you see the cards that you need to see. So he's already pretty good because he's a memory fixing tamer, and then on top of that, he also is a consistency tool where he has this on-play ability to just check the top 3 cards and then add a blue and green Digimon among them into your hand, then the rest go onto the bottom, so he could help you dig for the cards that you're looking for. And then, like I said, the deck already has a whole bunch of Veedramon support, so if you want to run Rina or Taichi V-Tamer, you're more than welcome to do so as well, because if you are just running the Veedramon stuff, then both of them definitely synergize it very well with Veedramon and Veemon stuff. So, like I said, there's just a ton of different things you could do with this style of deck, and you could take it into a whole bunch of different directions, all depending on what your budget is. And this deck realistically should cost you around $30-ish, depending on where you're looking and where you're buying it from. And I definitely think it's a really fun deck to be playing around with, especially on a budget. And it has just so many different ways you could upgrade the deck. I also forgot to mention that you could upgrade it to basically be an all-force deck if you wanted it to, or an Aeroveedramon deck if you also wanted it to be. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, I'll have the deck listed down in the description below, and down in the description below will also be a TCG Player affiliate link. So when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will end up going to supporting me in the channel. And as always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.